you tell I'm in denial?
You can't stay at the top forever.
I was also very surprised when I looked at my phone and saw Joe Girardi dismissed.
Well, I think mine were with common sense.
I think now belongs in the all-time greats top 10.
Boston, I really think only got to this point because of a guy named Chris Middleton being out for the Bucks.
That power play just was unbearable. It was humming.
Man, am I happy. I knew that this was going to happen. I knew he was going to come back.
When I think of New York Yankees now is Judge, probably people in the past when Jeter was coming up.
I would be shocked. A little bit hurt.
Hey, this is Greg Tepper of Dave Campbell's Texas Football, TexasFootball.com, and Valley Sports Southwest. You are listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NBA opinions of the week. Of course, it was a crazy deadline, including the Luka trade, but we dedicated two videos to that. One from an emotional side, just because he was with the Mavericks, and Mavericks were dear to me, and then just from a basketball perspective. But all the other trades are going to be covered in this video, including the De'Aaron Fox trade. The man, of course, Austin, I don't know if you want to start with your team first. With the Wizards getting Chris Middleton and trading Kyle Kuzma to the Bucks, which I think was I'm not surprised they traded Chris Middleton. I'm surprised Kyle Kuzma was the guy the Bucks got.
Yeah, it makes sense a little bit. Kuzma's definitely had a rough go of things recently, but he's still a more healthy version of what Chris Middleton is supposed to be at this point in his career. Kuzma's not as good as a defender as Middleton was in his prime, but Kuzma still is a solid defender when he's trying hard. And I don't know how he's going to do with not having the ball in his hand as much. He now goes from the primary to secondary scorer, really, but now he's easily the third to fourth option on that team. And I understand why the Bucks did it. It's going to be weird seeing if Chris Middleton does play with the Wizards at all, or if he just stays kind of in a limbo like he has been with the Bucks. He hasn't been playing all that much this year. I don't even know if he's played 10 games this season. But I understand why both teams did it. It's going to be – we'll see if they got a good ad come playoff time. Okay, so Chris Middleton's played 23 games this year. But he has been efficient in those games. He really just hasn't played long in those games, and he's also had a lot of injury problems this season.
Yeah, and I would say, so you talked about Kuzma's not going to be the primary scorer, and I would say that's Kuzma at his best is when he's a second to third scorer. However, this kind of brings in the human element. He doesn't like that. He likes having the ball in his hands. So I'm curious, how does this culture work with the Bucks? Because I think if Kuzma's that guy, he's a champion. He can help a champion.
Well, he did that for the Lakers when they won.
Yeah. But I do think it just got to where he wanted more of that star role, and he got that with the Wizards. But as I'm sure you know, the Wizards just aren't doing that well. But I'm curious. I understand trading off Kuzma from a Wizards perspective, and I'm wondering, they get an asset in Chris Middleton, but where do they move from here? Or it does kind of help them tank. So
it sort of helps them tank. I'm trying to go to Basketball Reference to see if there was anything else on the bottom half of that trade, but they don't even have it here yet. But yeah, I do think no matter what they'll get He's expiring, right?
Middleton maybe, and it also, this is weird. It says Marcus Smart went to the Wizards.
Yeah, he did.
He did. Wow, that's incredible. I just missed that one.
Oh, Chris Middleton next year has a player option, which he would definitely accept for $34 million.
Yeah. Wow. So I guess. Okay, the Wizards get Marcus Smart, Alex. They got a first round pick. Yeah, we'll have to see. I'm trying to see. I think they also got a couple seconds. They got some picks, but it was more like they got rid of Kyle Kuzma and they got then they got some picks back, and they got Middleton. It was those key players, but of course they got some picks back. But we'll have to see. That was something I wanted to bring up. And then I think we can go right into it. My brain's been a little bit foggy this week. We were on recording when I said I didn't think the Warriors were going to, the Warriors couldn't get Butler, right? And you corrected me. It was like he just didn't want to sign.
I don't know if that was during recording or not. I know that we talked about it either right before recording or at the beginning of that video. But yeah, I did say that it was more about Butler not wanting to go there, but it didn't actually mean that he wasn't going to go there. And then he ended up going there. I think a little bit too many people are hating on this trade. I've seen a lot of hate that this doesn't move them at all, this or that. This at least gives them a better scoring option than Andrew Wiggins. During the postseason, though, is where we're really going to see it. They have to get there, obviously. And I think this also improves their defense a little bit. Wiggins is a good defender, but Butler is a sensational defender when he's trying 100%. Just going to be about going to the playoffs. And obviously, he waived his player option and signed a 2-year extension. So for 2 more years after this season, they'll be there. So that kind of extends how long I don't think Curry leaves without with Butler being there, in my opinion. I think Curry will do 2 more seasons. I think that kind of makes sense timeline-wise. But I think this is a better trade than people are letting on. But also I understand fully that this isn't a tremendous trade. Butler is 35. He's been in the league for a while, and this season hasn't been his best. But I will also say that I do believe that come playoff time, this team really could be significantly improved because they got a guy that is much better in the playoffs than he is during the regular season.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've kind of stayed off NBA Twitter. But yeah, we'll have to see. The thing, though, I totally agree with you. This is a postseason move. They're similar players in the regular season, but the problem, to me, get an increase in kind of expectation with Butler in the playoffs that you only really saw from Wiggins when they won the championship, but that was just a better roster from that point too. So I would say that Butler upgrades them in the postseason, but it doesn't make them a better team until they get to the postseason. Just kind of what you're expecting from Butler, what he's done in the past. I think if you have Butler similar to what he was doing in the past in the playoffs with Steph Curry, I think that would be really incredible. And kind of they have more of an attitude, which has its benefits, I would say, on defense, but also its negatives because you have Draymond and Jimmy Butler together.
Yeah, in March, Curry turns 37, but he's been 36 the majority of the year. I could see him playing 2 years after this. He'd be 38, turning 39 at the end of the season, and that would probably be when he calls it a career. But he's still good enough to help this team, and both of them are together. They do have a lot less players on their team right now, and they're definitely going to have to sign free agents and everything to kind of fill out a full roster. But I like it a little bit more than what people are talking about. I think that this could be beneficial. We'll have to see, obviously, when everybody gets healthy, how this looks. I know Kuminga's still injured. He'll be reevaluated here in about a week, I think. But when he gets back, their starting lineup, it looks fine. I mean, I don't think it looks horrible. Hield has been worse recently than he was at the beginning of the season. But if he can get going, I believe they do have a starting five that would make sense.
Yeah, and then another thing that I wanted to talk about was the Raptors had a couple of trades. One, of course, the big one was they got Brandon Ingram, which I'm interested, and I did laugh. Bruce Brown got traded. That I know was off the air when you were talking about, like, does Bruce Brown get traded? But it was more for Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram didn't really fit with the Pelicans. I'm curious what the Raptors do, because how does he fit in with Scotty Barnes?
Yeah, and the thing is that he is a free agent after this season, so I am interested to see what happens re-sign wise, and if Ingram does play this year. It's a weird trade to me because I don't really know what's going to happen with Brandon Ingram after this season. Ingram's been out for a while. He's only played 18 games this season, and these injuries that he's had in his career are something to be concerned about. And like I said, he has no contract next season. So I don't know if the Raptors just traded to make sure they get the advantage in discussing, because they get to talk, I think, 4 days before they go to free agency. But we'll see how this ends up working out.
Yeah, and another thing that I think you're a big fan of Davion Mitchell, or you were a big fan of Davion Mitchell.
He's a solid defender, yeah.
Yeah, which I love this idea. Looking at what the Heat were dealing with, we talked about kind of that messy divorce with the Jimmy Butler. I like how they came out. I think Andrew Wiggins gives them a nice forward that is great defensively. And then I really like them getting Davion Mitchell. He's already a great defender, but maybe they sprinkle some of that Heat magic to where they just get good. Offensively, do just enough. So we'll have to keep an update on that and just kind of what they do. But I think they still got good defense at two areas while getting rid of Jimmy Butler and that headache that it became for them. Another thing, I'm curious how you felt about that trade.
I think that you're talking about the Warriors trade to get Wiggins.
Well, I kind of in general, but I like the addition of Davion Mitchell and Wiggins for the Heat.
Yeah. Wiggins, like I said, they got from the Butler trade, but yes, they. It's a good addition, and their team is significantly better on defense now after adding it, because Butler wasn't even playing. And I think the Heat, I don't want to say contender in the East, but they are a scary team. I would not want to play them in the playoffs because of how their team is built, and also they have a lot of experience on that squad.
Yeah, my only thing is kind of who's that go-to guy on offense. I know it's Tyler Hero, but how does he perform in the playoffs? But if you can hold your guys to less points, hold them to limited amount of points, and just scramble to get the other points, that I would say is a pretty good formula.
Yeah.
So, okay. Now, the other big one, I would say, the Cavs get DeAndre Hunter from the Hawks. I know there's always been rumors of them getting rid of Karis LeVert. I think he's a good scorer, but I really like what DeAndre Hunter brings him as a defensive player.
And a shooter. And they needed another set shooter. Niang can't shoot, but now they have Sam Merrill and DeAndre Hunter. Hunter is a better scorer than Merrill, but they're both solid shooters. And I do think defensively this also adds a good bit. I think this is a big trade for the Cavs, and they get somebody who, while he wasn't starting with he wasn't starting in Atlanta, I could see him starting with the Cavs. Who the Cavs been starting at small forward?
Is it? No, that wouldn't be him.
I don't know why my brain is completely fried.
Feel like oh no, I want to say it was a Heat. No, but he's a guard. There's some. No, I don't know who.
It's either been Okoro. It's been Dean Wade, really.
Okay, I remember Okoro, but yeah, that does fit in.
Yeah, so I think that DeAndre Hunter could definitely be starting, at least come playoff time, once he gets more used to how this team is oriented.
Yeah, and then I guess another thing, Hawks traded a lot of guys. Bogdan Bogdanović goes to the Clippers. That could be a scary team. I think Bogdanović is a good role player, and then of course you have Norm Powell, as we talked about in the All-Star game, and then just kind of does.
They have a lot of players that out of nowhere could drop 30, or just score a lot of points. Say again.
They have serviceable guys. Like they have a high floor, and then depends on. Like, I think Bogdanović is a great role player, but you mentioned that a guy that could drop 30.
Yeah, he get really hot from three. I mean, we saw it just not in the Olympics, but also in a couple games this last season. But yeah, I like this trade for the Clippers. I do think their chances of winning this season are improved. I think that they are underrated this year. I could really see them going a lot further than other people do because of how their team is built, especially now that they have Kawhi healthy.
Yeah. I think that's a huge thing. That's I think. Oh, De'Aaron Fox.
Well, there's another one that we missed, but we'll do De'Aaron Fox first. Okay. Fox, I think, is a good ad for San Antonio. people were saying the Bulls got fleeced, and while yes, the Bulls could have got more out of this deal, they're losing the contracts. Like all these guys they're getting are going to be easy to get rid of / expiring deals. So I get it. I get it. Yes, you could have gotten more out of it, sure, but I don't think either Sacramento is going to be fine because now Monk's going to be their point guard, and Monk's been averaging a lot of assists recently. So I kind of like how their team is built, and I like how the Spurs got Fox. This isn't really going to hurt Chris Paul as much as some people think. I mean, their first game, Chris Paul still had 11 points and 9 assists, but because Fox kind of plays like a shooting guard a little bit. That's why Monk and him were good together because Monk was kind of playing like the point guard. They can both kind of play pseudo point guard at times, and I think that's because Chris Paul can shoot the three ball well. That's kind of how this is going to work in San Antonio. And I'm a little bit interested to see how Devin Vassell and Stephon Castle are affected by this. But I think I like this trade for definitely the Spurs and the Kings. And while I don't love it for the Bulls, I don't think it's as bad as some people have said it is.
Yeah, and talking about with that Bulls, they've been shopping Levine for forever. Same thing with Vucevic, who stayed on the team. It's kind of gone like, okay, we know you want to trade him, and they were able to trade him, and yeah, so I think it kind of they got their own first round pick back via the Spurs, but yeah, I really like this from San Antonio. I kind of view this as this helps them right now because you have Chris Paul and De'Aaron Fox, but you did mention that problem, which isn't really a problem. But I view this more as of the future. Like you have a running mate with Wemby now with De'Aaron Fox versus this year you just had Chris Paul and then Harrison Barnes. But for the future, De'Aaron Fox is going to be with the Spurs. And so I think that's pretty scary. I think they're a scary team this season because of De'Aaron Fox and Chris Paul, but they seem pretty set for the future. And they also have Stephon Castle, who's developing as well.
Yeah. And we can move on to the trade that you forgot. You mentioned it kind of. You kind of mentioned it. It's the Mark Williams trade.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
You did mention something about Connect, but it wasn't really the actual trade, and Connect is involved in it. Look, if I'm the Lakers, I'd want to keep Connect, but I understand it for Mark Williams. Mark Williams has had effort problems with the Hornets, but he's an extremely talented guy and someone that I think the Lakers are definitely happy to have because their centers rotation before that was scary to say the least.
Yeah, and the thing that, I may have mentioned this because there was a video posted after the trade that I mentioned Dalton Connect. I understand, you want to keep Connect, but it was kind of you had a dire situation at center. And the thing that is, they had multiple first-round picks that they didn't give up in the Luka trade. And that kind of allowed him to get Mark Williams. And I do think Luka makes his centers better, even though he had some very good centers with Lively and Gafford. But I do think offensively, Mark Williams will improve just from the lob threat. You also have LeBron on that as well.
100%. I also feel like Mark Williams is going to be another scoring option outside of just lob threat, because I think Lively was more of just that lob threat, and now we have to see how he's going to adjust. But Mark Williams can score on his own, which I do think is a benefit. And then trading Connect, I mean, it sucks, but Connect and Mark Williams are the same age. They're both 23. Mm-hmm. So it's not a huge loss in the term of age. It's just shooting. Now, who are your shooters? It's really just Austin Reeves. LeBron can kind of shoot. Luka can kind of shoot. It depends on those guys. Those guys can get flaming hot. Those also, I've seen Luka shoot really bad. I've seen LeBron shoot really bad. So it's going to be who are your shooters, because you lost Christie and you lost Connect now. So I do think that's now the next point of emphasis. But I do like what they got because the bigger need was definitely a center, and that's what they addressed.
Yeah, and I do think they have Dorian Finney-Smith, but he's not a shooter like Dalton Connect was. But I do think you're kind of betting on Luka and his chemistry with Dorian Finney-Smith and Maxi Kleber.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, but that was another trade. I think that was it. Pretty exciting. And I think we forgot to mention at the beginning, like, we wish we could have done this right after the trade deadline, but it is such a weird scenario. The Super Bowl is coming up, so we, of course, have to focus on the Super Bowl. And the trade deadline really took away from kind of the week before the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so it was just an influx of information, influx of things we had to talk about. So we tried our best. We're a daily podcast. We post a video a day on most days. There'll be days we post more, but we didn't really feel like that was necessary here. Trade deadlines happened, and it's interesting to see where all these players are going to go and how they're going to affect their future teams.
Yeah, let us know your thoughts and comments. We appreciate you listening to Outsiders Opinions.